Greetings to everyone present here. This is Hazel of class 11A here to introduce to you the video presentation made by the girls on the topic Connecting Stories, Letters Written by Indian Soldiers. Sadia and I are here to illustrate the background aspect of the world wars. We have Maya and Laura to speak about the theme of the topic. Amrita and Amitisha are going to elucidate on the shared contributions. Last but not the least, Akshaya and Isha are here with a tribute paying original rendition for soldiers who fought in the world wars. Hope you enjoyed listening to our video presentation. Thank you all.
Greetings of the day to all. This is Hazel and I am here to present the video presentation made by my friend Sadia and myself. This presentation revolves around the background idea of the most famous war, the World Wars. In this presentation, we will look at the causes and the participant nations of the wars, the important events that took place during the wars, and their global impact.
Let us see what were the causes of the First World War. The immediate cause of the World War I was the assassination of Austria's Archduke Franz Ferdinand. In June 1914, a Serbian nationalist terrorist group called the Black Hand sent groups to assassinate the Archduke. The war started mainly because of four aspects, that is, number one, militarism. By 1914, Germany had the greatest increase in military buildup. Great Britain and Germany both greatly increased their navies in this time period. Number two, alliances. Number three, imperialism. Imperialism is when a country increases their power and wealth by bringing additional territories under their control. And number four is nationalism.
Now that we know the agents that caused the First World War, let us look at the alliances formed by countries and their colonies across the world. From the attached map, we can understand that there were two main alliances of countries, the Allies and the Central Powers. Countries such as Russia, Romania, Italy, France and Great Britain constituted the Allied powers, and the Ottoman Empire, Austro-Hungary, Germany and other such countries were part of the Central Powers.
Some important events of World War I. By mid-1914, Archduke was assassinated and the first Battle of Marne was held. By mid of 1915, the first usage of poison gas was by Germans and the sinking of Lusitania occurred. From 1916 to 1917, Battle of Verdun was held. By the early stages of 1917, United States declares war. By 1918, Russia leaves the war. By the end of 1918, Germany signs armistice.
Every action in life has an impact on its surroundings. Similarly, the First World War resulted in many changes across the globe. Let us have a look at some of them. The First World War led to independence movements in various European colonies in modern-day Africa and Asia. The destruction of majestic empires like the Ottoman Empire that ruled today's Turkey was the direct result of the First World War. Swinging its industrial might and vast manpower behind France and Britain against the Central Powers on April 6, 1917, the United States tipped the balance of the conflict and marked its own emergence as a global power. Germans struggled to understand their country's uncertain future due to the First World War. Citizens faced poor economic conditions, skyrocketing unemployment, political instability, and profound social change. While downplaying more extreme goals, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party offered simple solutions to Germany's problems, exploiting people's fears, frustrations, and hopes to win broad support. Germany and the USSR signed a non-aggression pact in which the two countries agreed to take no military action against each other for a span of 10 years. This pact empowered the Soviet Union.
Let us come to know what were the causes of Second World War. The major causes of World War II was the Treaty of Versailles following World War I, the worldwide economic depression, failure of appeasement, the rise of militarism in Germany and Japan, and the failure of League of Nations. The major causes of World War II was the Treaty of Versailles following World War I, the worldwide economic depression, failure of appeasement, the rise of militarism in Germany and Japan, and the failure of League of Nations.
Let us look at the nations that participated in the Second World War. In the Second World War, there were the Allied powers and the Axis powers. As you can see, the Allies were large in number and included the colonies of countries such as Great Britain and France, in addition to the countries themselves. The Central Powers included Germany, Italy, and Japan and their colonies.
Some important events of World War II. By the end of 1939, Germany invades Poland and the World War II begins. By the mid-1940, Dunkirk was evacuated, and by 1941, Pearl Harbor was attacked, and the end of 1942, Allies invade North Africa. By 1945, atom bombs dropped and the surrendering of Japan and Germany occurred.
Let us know how the Second World War affected the world in various aspects. The Treaty of Versailles forced Germany to give up territory to Belgium, Czechoslovakia and Poland, Britain, Alsace and Lorraine to France, and ceded all of its overseas colonies in China, the Pacific region and Africa to the Allied nations. This humiliated Germany greatly. In the end of the Second World War in 1945, the Allied powers demanded justice from the defeated Axis powers, especially Germany. A tribunal was set up in Nuremberg, Germany to prosecute Nazi leaders. At the Nuremberg trials, Hitler and his Nazi government were accused of committing genocide against Jews. The war also led to the fall of fascism, which is a form of government in which most of the country's power is held by one ruler. Nazism was a form of fascism. During World War II, Japan attacked nearly all of its Asian neighbors, allied itself with Nazi Germany and launched a surprise assault on the US naval base at Pearl Harbor. After Japan's surrender in 1945, its Emperor Hirohito became a figurehead with no political power. The Japanese economy rose quickly from the ashes of the war. By 1956, real per capita GDP had overtaken the pre-war 1940 level. During the recovery period, which spanned from 1945 to 1956, per capita GDP rose at an average annual rate of 7.1%. Recovery was followed by the era of rapid growth. In 1941, Germany and Italy split up Yugoslavia into Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina. After the Second World War, East and West Germany were divided as was Berlin. The UN partition plan for Palestine led to Israel's independence in 1948. Moreover, North and South Korea were divided, which led to the Korean War. The 38th parallel, a popular name given to the latitude 38° north that is found in East Asia, roughly demarcates North Korea and South Korea. The war led to a 4-year civil war in China that allowed communism to take power. The India uprising and the influence of Great Britain and Japan's occupation of the Dutch East Indies led to the formation of an independent Indonesia.
Good morning to all. I am Maya R of class 11 and me and my friend Laura are here to present a PPT on the theme of the letters of unsung Indian heroes of the First and Second World Wars. Let's start with the introduction. Approximately 1.3 million Indian soldiers served in the First World War and more than 2.5 million Indians fought in the Second World War. Most of these soldiers didn't fight because they wanted to, but because they were forced to by the British. During these tough times, letters were one of the only sources of comfort for the Indian soldiers. These letters were mostly addressed to the families of the soldiers. Many letters talked about the severe struggles and miseries that they underwent, and from the way it's written, it is clear that the soldiers were afraid that they'd never see their families again. The letters talk about starvation, hopelessness, and fear that the soldiers had that they never return home.
Good morning. I'm Laura and I'm here to present the theme of the soldiers' letters. 2.5 million men from India served the British during the World Wars. Their experiences are little remembered today, neither in the UK, where a Eurocentric memory of the war dominates the main view. Indian soldiers' letters to their wives, mothers, and children are beautifully encapsulated. They take us to the portals of soldiers' emotional world and show us the image of the soldier sitting on his kit bag and scribbling on the paper, spilling his feelings. This wartime love letter becomes a remarkable testament to the forgotten experiences of the Indian soldier. The main theme of several of these letters is the love and affection shown by these soldiers towards their families and how much they miss them. They tell their wives and mothers to not weep if they happen to die in the war and instead embrace their memories and move on.
Here are some photos of our Indian soldiers in the First and Second World Wars.
Share contributions. 2.5 million men from undivided India served the British during the Second World War. Their experiences are little remembered today, neither in the UK where a Eurocentric memory of the war dominates, nor in South Asia which privileges national histories of independence from the British Empire. And yet, military censorship reports from the Second World War archived at the British Library's India Office records and containing extracts from Indian soldiers' letters home bear witness to his counter-narrative. Letters were written in Indian languages Hindi, Gurmukhi, Urdu, Bengali and Tamil and often dictated to scribes by Indian sepoys who were illiterate. They were then translated into English for the censor who compiled selected quotations from the letters into a report testifying to the spirit or morale of the soldiers. Soldiers' names have been anonymized in these reports and so it is virtually impossible to trace their letters to their writers. All that remains are evocative textual shards quoted into the soldiers' emotional world.
Here are some of the examples of the letters written by our fighters. I have written to you many times, but God alone knows why I don't get your letters. You say you write regularly. Letters mean half meetings and they are a great consolation to us. Written in Urdu by an Indian Sipai from Tunisia on May 16, 1943. Subada Pir Tatkar wrote in Urdu from the front on 2nd October 1915 that this country, which is in the likeness of paradise, now seems to me worse than hell. Zimadar Ghulam Hasan Khan was writing to a friend or a family member in Rawalpindi in the Punjab in early October 1915. He wrote that he arrived in France on 19 September 1915 and by 23rd September he had reached the trenches. He went on to say that the men were fully supplied with everything they wanted in the way of food, matches, tobacco, etc. But that the cold is what we suffer from most. besides the constant rain and hail of shells. This was more than likely due to Ghulam Hassan Khan's closing instruction to his correspondent to arrange a code so they could communicate with each other more secretly. Thank you.
A tribute to veterans. Medals on your chest to say you are the best. Too brave to choose tough life. Too proud to call the country a wife. Just to ease all our fears. There in the borders, you stood with blood, sweat and tears. You fought for us until your last breath, just ignoring your own death. You were a soldier born to die, in order for the flag you loved to fly. Your sacrifices never go in vain, as the bells of freedom ring again and again. Salute to our veterans.
Let us all start with a quote. You must tell yourself, no matter how hard it is, no matter how hard it gets, I'm going to make it, by Les Brown. Here we have our contents. I would like to invite my friend Master Shri Gokul to introduce our main topics for today.
Our main topics for today: a brief introduction to the life of Khudadat Khan, the life of Abdul Hafiz, involvement of India in World War I and involvement of India in World War II, emotions and feelings of Indian soldiers, contribution of Indian civilians to the nation and Indian Army, conclusion.
Here we have a brief introduction again delivered by Master Shri Gokul.
Brief introduction. Over 1 million Indian troops served overseas, of whom 62,000 died and another 67,000 were wounded. In total, at least 74,187 Indian soldiers died during the war. In World War I, the Indian Army fought against the German Empire on the Western Front. The Indian Army during World War II was one of the largest Allied forces contingents which took part in the North and East African Campaign, Western Desert Campaign. At the height of the Second World War, more than 2.5 million Indian troops were fighting Axis forces around the globe.
Thank you, Shri Gokul. Here we have our first topic, the life of Khudadat Khan, delivered by R. Rukesh.
Khudadat Khan was born on 20 October 1888, place Dab, Punjab, British India, now Chakwal, Pakistan. Died in 8 March 1971, aged 82, place Mandi, Bahauddin, Punjab, Pakistan. Allegiance, British India, rank Subedar. Battles awards, First World War. Khudadat Khan, BC, was the first soldier of the British Indian Army to become the recipient of the Victoria Cross, the highest military award for the gallantry in the face of the enemy given to the British and Commonwealth forces. On 31st October 1914, at Holybeek, Belgium, 26-year-old Khan, then serving in the British Indian Army, performed an act of bravery, for which he was awarded the Victoria Cross during the First World War. The statue of Khudadat Khan is at the entrance of the Pakistan Army Museum in Rawalpindi.
Thank you, Rukesh. The second topic for today, the life of Abdul Hafiz, delivered by B. Yuvarajakumar.
Abdul Hafiz Khan was 18 when he was serving the British Indian Army as the Jamadar in the 9th Death Regiment. In April 1944, he was fighting at the Battle of Imphal, where he was ordered to lead his platoon to an enemy position. He had led them across a bare slope and climbed up a steep hill. During the climb, The enemy opened fire and threw grenades, injuring him. But he climbed on nevertheless, and once he reached the enemy bunker on the crest, snatched a machine gun from a soldier with his bare hands while another man killed the gunner. He led his platoon forward, eliminating the enemy one by one. He had received machine gun wound, but even as he fell, his hands did not leave the trigger, firing at the enemy.
Thank you, Yuvaraj. Next in line, we have How Did India Get Involved in World War I by myself, F. Teddy Sampson, and Harish.
In 1914, the governor of British East Africa requested assistance to deal with the German force in German East Africa, and the two problems was handed to the Indian office, which assembled two forces and shipped them to his aid. Indian Expeditionary Force B consisted of the 27th Bangalore Brigade, commanded by the Brigadier General Richard Wapshire, from the 9th Sikandarabad Division, and Imperial Service Infantry Brigade, commanded by the Brigadier General Michael Tighe, together with the Pioneer Battalion, a mountain artillery battery and engineers. The force re-embarked on 5 November 1914, having suffered 4,240 casualties and the loss of several hundred rifles, 16 machine guns, and 600,000 rounds of ammunition.
Indian Expeditionary Force C was the second force assembled for service in British East Africa in 1914. This force was formed from the Indian Army's 29th Punjabis together with half battalions from the princely states of Jind, Bharatpur, Kapurthala, and Rampur, a volunteer 15-pounder artillery battery, 22nd Derajat Mountain Battery, Frontiers Force, a volunteer maximum gun battery, and a field ambulance. The largest Indian Army force to serve abroad was the Indian Expeditionary Force D in Mesopotamia. Between January and March 1916, Townshend launched several attacks in an attempt to lift the siege. In February, food and hopes were running out for Townshend in Kat al-Amara. Disease spread rapidly and could not be contained or cured, and Townshend surrendered in April 1916. Indian Expeditionary Force F consisted of the 10th Indian Division and the 11th Indian Division, both of which were formed in Egypt in 1914 to defend the Suez Canal. Other formations attached were the regular 22nd Lucknow Brigade from the 8th Lucknow Division without their British battalions and an Imperial Service Cavalry Brigade. In April 1915, Indian Expeditionary Force G was sent to reinforce the Gallipoli campaign. It consisted of the 29th Brigade serving away from its parent 10th Indian Division held in reserve from the Second Battle of Kritya. They played a major part in the Third Battle of Kritya. The 14th Firozpur 6 advancing along the floor of Gully Ravine were almost wiped out, losing 380 men over of 514 and 80% of their officers. Over the duration of the campaign, the 29th Brigade had suffered 1,358 dead and 3,421 wounded. Thank you, Yuvraj. Next, the fourth topic, how did Indians get involved in World War II by SSB Sri Gokul.
The British Indian Army during World War II began the war in 1939, numbering just under 2 lakh men. By the end of the war, it had become the largest volunteer army in history, rising over to 2.5 million in August 1945, serving in divisions of infantry, armor, and a fledgling airborne force. They fought on 3 continents in Africa, Europe, and Asia. The British Indian Army fought in Ethiopia against the Italian army. in Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, and Algeria against both the Italian and German army, and after the Italian surrender against the German army in Italy. However, the bulk of British Indian Army was committed to fighting the Japanese army, first during the British defeats in Malaya and the retreat from Burma to the Indian border. Later, after resting and refitting for the victorious advance back into Burma, as part of the largest British Empire army ever formed. These campaigns cost the lives of over 87,000 Indian servicemen, while other 34,354 were wounded and 67,340 became prisoners of war. Their valor was recognized with the award of some 4,000 decorations, and 18 members of British Indian Army were awarded the Victoria Cross or the George Cross. Field Marshal Claude Auchinleck, Commander-in-Chief of British Indian Army from 1942, asserted that the British couldn't have come through both the wars, World War I and II, if they hadn't British Indian Army. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill also paid tribute to the unsurpassed bravery of Indian soldiers and officers. Indian participation in the Allied campaign remained strong. India's strategic location at the tip of Indian Ocean, its large production of armaments, and its huge armed force played a decisive role in halting the progress of Imperial Japan in the Southeast Asian theater.
Thank you, Sri Gokul. Next, number 5. Emotions and Feelings of Indian Soldiers During War by V.T. Ashwin Kumar and Aditya Varman DSM. Ashwin, please start. The first half of the topic will be carried out by Ashwin Kumar, and then the second part will be carried out by Aditya Varman.
2.5 million men from undivided India served the British during the Second World War. This may be to protect others, to protect themselves from becoming overwhelmed again by the retelling of the experiences, or to avoid being rejected by others' commands or disinterest. Some veterans can be overwhelmed by the continuing or recurring effects of war or peacekeeping related events. When this happens, they may think only of themselves and how to survive what is happening. Some veterans may become emotionally detached without feelings for themselves or those around them. This may be to protect others, to protect themselves from becoming overwhelmed again by retelling of the experiences, or to avoid being rejected by others' commands or disinterest. This may be wary of further hurt, protecting themselves by avoiding closeness and being distrustful of others. Withdrawal may feel safer or may seem like the only way to reduce the overload of symptoms. They may withdraw into work, other activities, or spend increasing time alone.
Soldiers are the guardians of the nation, protect its citizens at all costs. Moreover, they are very selfless, not to put the interest of the country above their personal interest. A soldier's job is one of the toughest things to do in the world. They are supposed to fulfill challenging duties and possess exceptional qualities to become a great soldier. However, their lives are very tough. Nonetheless, they always fulfill their duties despite the hardships. Being a soldier is not easy. In fact, it's one of the most challenging things to do. Firstly, they spend a great deal of time away from their loved ones. It disturbs them emotionally and they do not even get any holidays. Even in festivals, they are busy safeguarding the nation. Similarly, soldiers have to undergo rigorous training to become fit to fight battles. It becomes exhausting and physically challenging, but they still go on. To make it worse, they do not even get an adequate amount of supply to lead a normal life. Sometimes the food rationing is low. The other times they get posted in remote areas without any signal.
Thank you, Hashwin and Aditya Varman. Next, number 6. Contribution of Indian civilians to the nation and army by again Harish and myself.
The Indian Army is one of the largest and best armies in the world. The Army, which is the pride of our nation, contributes to live for the people beyond the battlefield too. The last one can do to show gratitude and respect to is to contribute and donate to support the Indian Army. As we are 21st century students, we can create awareness about Indian Army in social media.
Those interested in donating to the Indian Army can contribute to National Defence Fund (NDF) utilized for the welfare of armed forces, also paramilitary forces members including the army and their dependents. The one here explained is the donation. One can send donations to Paraplegic Rehabilitation Center in Pune that provides aftercare and rehabilitation to Defence Forces personnel disabled due to spinal cord injuries, paraplegics and tetraplegics.
I, Harish, sincerely thank each and every spectator for spending their precious time with us. I would like to thank my team members for supporting and cooperating. Last but not the least, I would like to gratify all our educators and management for giving us such a great opportunity and exposure. I would like to thank BVM for igniting sparks from our tender minds and imbibe us with the capabilities and talents.